Suddenly he grabbed his official seal, about to smash it on Su Yuanjia. With his terrifying strength, if the seal hit, it would endanger Su Yuanjia's life. Father. Su Yuanjia's eyes were full of terror. He never thought that this matter would make his father this furious. General, calm down. Calm down. Lu Yan, the robust man beside them, finally stepped in to stop General Su. At the same time, he turned to Su Yuanjia. Young master, are you still not leaving? Thank you, Uncle Lu. Su Yuanjia scrambled on all fours towards the hall exit, as if pardoned from a death sentence. Imprison this traitor in the military cell, without my command, no one is to release him, roared General Su. Yes. 2 guards outside the hall acknowledged the order, promptly catching up with Su Yuanjia. Finally, tranquility descended within the hall. General Su drew a deep breath, then turned to Lu Yan. Apologies, Lu Yan, I lost my composure. My failure to educate my child has led you to witness such a farce. General, please soothe your rage, Lu Yan spoke in a low tone. While the young master's actions were impulsive, his intentions were good. Good intentions. He's too foolish, too focused on petty gains. Disappointment filled General Su's eyes. Lu Yan found himself unable to reply. General, according to the 2 family heads we captured, the young master did not reveal the specifics to the gang. Lu Yan broke the silence. Does it matter? General Su shook his head. How cunning is Wu Kaiming? How can he not have guessed that it was the work of my Su faction? Our mole in the county mayor's faction has sent news. The Wu clan has agreed to jointly accuse us. Moreover, that youngster Wu Yuan's strength is advancing at a rapid pace. It is said that he already possesses the strength of a martial virtuoso. A martial virtuoso at 14? When was the last time such a prodigy appeared in Li City? Among the disciples taken in by the Cloud Martial Hall this year, only one can rival him. General Su shook his head slightly. Once the Wu clan lodges the accusation, Zhang Dongke will undoubtedly lend his full support. Faced with a genius like Wu Yuan, the sect won't sit by idly. The inspection hall will definitely make a trip here to investigate the matter. What should we do? The mention of the inspection hall caused Lu Yan's complexion to change. If it weren't for my idiotic child, the Wu clan's accusation wouldn't be a problem. But the 3rd family head of the vicious tiger gang has fallen into Zhang Dongke's hands, and he knows too much. General Su's eyes were ice cold. I understand, Lu Yan nodded slightly. This 3rd family head will fall ill and die in prison. General Su nodded satisfactorily, his anger subsiding a little. What about the Wu clan? Lu Yan posed another question. They have already suffered injustice at my hands. This time Wu Kaiming almost lost his life. Many of the Wu clansmen have been injured or killed. They are probably filled with rage towards me. Along with Zhang Dongke stirring the pot, there's no way to reconcile with them. Besides, even if we were to try reconciling, would they believe us? General Su's gaze was icy. Lu Yan could not help but shake his head. Since the issue with the vicious tiger gang, both sides had lost their foundation of trust. Moreover, Wu Yuan possesses great talent. Even if we were to mend our relationship, who knows whether he will seek revenge after he matures. General Su shook his head. The risk is too high. I'm not willing to take such a gamble. Then, Lu Yan asked hesitantly. Find an opportunity to get rid of Wu Yuan first. Once Wu Yuan is dead, kill Wu Kaiming, General Su said coldly. By then, all those involved in this matter would have died, leaving no one to refute us. With only a few pieces of evidence in Zhang Dongke's hands linking me with the vicious tiger gang, I would be recalled back to the sect at most. With Master around, I still have the opportunity to make a comeback. Lu Yan could not help but nod. Others might not know of this, but he knew that Su Xiaoyi's mentor was one of the key decision-makers of the sect. We still haven't found out who the mysterious spearman is. Although his wiping out the vicious tiger gang has its pros and cons, it has solved a major problem for me, General Su said. Right. Lu Yan could not help but nod, a trace of lingering fear on his face. Who could have imagined that Yang Long was actually a disciple of Yuan Hubilla? He concealed his identity too well. It was only after searching through the entire stronghold that I found the letters of communication between Yang Long and Yuan Hubilla. Yuan Hubilla was one of the 6 major powers of the Zhang continent. Although weaker than the Cloud Stride sect, it still ruled over thousands of li of territory. It had a population of 20 million and housed many martial arts experts. Yuan Hubilla allied with the Cloud Stride sect against Great Jin. They can be considered half an ally, yet they planted a pawn in the belly of our sect. There must be a reason behind it, General Su slowly said. If we can find out the reason before the sect gets involved, we might not only be declared innocent, but even earn merit. Chapter 33, 100,000 caddies of force. Within the hall. Innocent, and even earn merit. Luya pondered the general's words. Yuan Villa is merely a force that old Yuan established, taking advantage of the collapse of the Chuzhang Empire. With this force, he unified the Yuan province for just over 10 years. But its foundation is weak, far from comparable to our Cloud Stride sect, General Su stated. As a senior official and a core disciple, he was very clear about the situation in the Zhang continent, though he couldn't say the same for the overall situation in the Middle Land. Old Yuan has recruited some experts over the years. However, their numbers are limited, and he's not one to readily place his trust in others. The sole individuals he confides in and truly cherishes are his 5 direct disciples, General Su murmured softly. According to what we've learned from interrogating the remnants of the vicious Tiger Gang, the martial arts expert who last faced the mysterious spearman was dressed in beast hide and wielded twin hammers. He should be none other than old Yuan's youngest direct disciple, Beast Mountain Hammer Ming Lai. General Su said with certainty. First-rate adept, Ming Lai. I heard that he has yet to reach 30, and is acknowledged as the top genius of Yuan Villa. Luya exclaimed, he was here. First-rate adepts were few and far between. There were no true first-rate adepts living in Li City. But at the provincial level, there were quite a few first-rate adepts. Beast Mountain Hammer Ming Lai was a famous first-rate adept in the Zhang continent for one simple reason, his youth. Being young meant having infinite possibilities. There's a 90% chance it's him. This Beast Mountain Hammer must have a special reason for appearing here out of the blue, General Su said. Investigate. Mobilize all forces, get to the bottom of it. From the time Zhang Danke and the others jointly lodged a complaint, to the news reaching our sect, and then our sect sending a team here to investigate the matter, it will take at least a month. In 5 days, if we still can't find anything, compile all the clues and report them to the sect. It will also be considered a meritorious deed, General Su said. Indeed, Lu Yan affirmed. He had been a follower of Su Xiaoyi from a young age, demonstrating unwavering loyalty and thus gaining his utmost trust. The Zhang continent, a confluence of countless rivers, spanned thousands of miles and boasted a population of hundreds of millions. Despite enduring unending turmoil over thousands of years, it had maintained a structure of 16 provinces. Yuanhu province was the southernmost province of the Zhang continent, situated at the junction of 3 continents, the other 2 being the Chu continent and the Dong continent. When the Chuzhang Empire first collapsed, the region was plunged into chaos for over a decade. Only about 10 years ago, when old Yuanhu established Yuanhu Villa, did stability finally return. The headquarters of Yuanhu Villa was located beside the 600 li wide Yuanhu Lake, nestled against the backdrop of Yuanhu Mountain. It boasted layers of towering pavilions and ancient trees reaching high into the sky, occupying a broad expanse of land. Numerous disciples could be seen refining their skills on a variety of training grounds, a sight that showed off the splendor of a great martial sect. The grand hall at the highest point of the villa stood majestic and vast. Its decor was simple yet elegant. But today, there were no disciples guarding it. Vive Noel.C Sigma M. In the middle of the hall, a one-armed man was kneeling, his head bowed low to the ground. An invisible aura enveloped the entire grand hall. You lost the Chuzhang token just like that, echoed a cold voice in the grand hall. Ming Lai, you have truly disappointed me. At the front of the hall stood a man with black hair. He was dressed in a wide red robe and had a lean face, dark skin, and narrow eyes. His demeanor radiated a sense of cold indifference. Most notably, his left eye appeared cloudy, a clear sign of blindness. He was old Yuanhu, the master of Yuanhu Villa and the ruler of millions in Yuanhu province. I beg your forgiveness, master. Ming Lai bowed his head, sweat trickling down his face. Did you recognize the expert you fought? Old Yuanhu's voice was still cold. I could not. Ming Lai bowed his head. He wore a bronze mask, first wielding a spear, then a saber. His moves were strange and unfamiliar. I truly could not recognize him. I can confirm that his physical constitution wasn't strong, only around the 5th grade. However, his martial skills were quite formidable. He invoked power surge repeatedly as if he was not restricted by any physical limits. I believe he has reached the rigid yet supple stage. Ming Lai stated solemnly. Rigid yet supple. Old Yuan, who had maintained his composure until those words reached his ears. In an instant, a cold gleam passed through his eyes. A 5th grade physical constitution, but at the rigid yet supple stage. Ming Lai. Old Yuan, whose gaze turned icy, and a bone-chilling aura enveloped the grand hall. Over the 20 years I've taught you, when did I ever teach you to deceive your master? A chill ran down Ming Lai's spine, causing him to shudder involuntarily. Master, I am puzzled too. But I've spoken nothing but the truth. I dare not deceive you. Ming Lai gritted his teeth, his head lowered. Old Yuan, who looked down at Ming Lai. His fingertips danced on his prayer beads, seemingly lost in thought. A strange pressure filled the grand hall, making it difficult for Ming Lai to catch his breath. Just as he was on the verge of collapsing, Old Yuan, who finally spoke, Ming Lai, this time, I choose to believe you. His voice softened slightly. Thank you, Master. Ming Lai, having been pardoned, bowed repeatedly. Transcribe everything you have said today, and send it to me. Old Yuan, who calmly instructed. Yes, I understand. Ming Lai nodded continuously. This was a customary practice at Yuan Villa. The loss of the Chujiang token is a minor matter. What's truly pitiful is the loss of your arm, Old Yuan, whose gaze fell upon Ming Lai's severed arm. I have let you down, Master. Ming Lai hung his head, his eyes filled with resentment and unwillingness. In the practice of martial arts, the loss of an arm would greatly affect the musculoskeletal system of the rest of the body. Forget stepping into a higher grade, even maintaining one's current strength would be extremely difficult. His lifespan would also be affected, and in life and death battles, he would expose more fatal flaws. Fortune and misfortune are closely entwined in martial arts cultivation, Old Yuan, who slowly said. 300 years ago, there was a land ranker called Songbo, who lost an arm in battle. After 30 years of hard work, he crafted the one-armed immortal blade and became a heavenly ranker, shaking the world. It's unfortunate that you've lost an arm. But you're still young, not even 30 years old. If you focus on your martial path, I see no reason why you can't reach my level in the future. Old Yuan, who solemnly said, you must not wallow in despair, do you understand? I will heed your words and not disappoint you, Master, Ming Lai promised. You may leave, Old Yuan, who dismissed him. Ming Lai rose with difficulty. He had yet to heal from his injuries, and blood was still visible at the site of his amputation. He bowed, then slowly exited the grand hall. Not long after, 2 figures entered the grand hall, one tall, one short. The taller one was clad in a white robe and appeared quite refined. The shorter one was clad in iron armor, his muscles bulging, resembling a gigantic iron ball. Master, the 2 bowed simultaneously. Your junior brother found a Chujiang token in the Li County of South Dream Province. However, it was stolen from him, and he lost an arm, Old Yuan, who informed them in a cold voice. The Chujiang token. The refined man in the white robe was startled. Our younger brother lost an arm. The shorter, muscular man was equally shocked. Their initial reactions to the news were completely different. In a while, your younger brother will write up a report detailing the incident. Read it carefully, Old Yuan, who instructed. Understood, the 2 disciples replied in unison. Tang you, head to Li City with some of your elites for a covered investigation. If you find traces of the Chujiang token, you must retrieve it, Old Yuan, who looked at the refined man in the white robe. Disciple understands, the man in white robes answered. Zhu Shan, lead your elites and scour the area in a 500 li radius around Li City. Look for traces of the Chujiang token, commanded Old Yuan, who. Yes, acknowledged the stout, portly man, cupping his fists. Remember, Old Yuan, whose gaze swept over his 2 disciples, this matter is of great importance. The Cloud Stride sect may discover traces as well and send their experts. Avoid conflict with them if possible, and operate discreetly. But if you confirm the location of the Chujiang token, acquire it at all costs, Old Yuan, who stated. Afterwards, I'll provide an explanation to the Cloud Stride sect myself. Yes, the 2 disciples acknowledged their instructions with resolute hearts. With their master's backing, their worries were greatly alleviated. The Cloud Stride sect controlled 3 provinces and was much stronger than Yuan Villa. but with the Great Jin Empire watching them like a tiger, neither would risk starting a war. 6 days passed. In a small courtyard house at the southern end of Lee City. Apart from 2 trips home to assure his family of his safety, Wu Yuan spent all his time in this courtyard house, fully dedicated to practicing the tiger leopard bone training technique. As the quantity of liquid in the jade vial dwindled, Wu Yuan's physical constitution transformed at an unimaginable speed. His arms supported his weight as sweat covered his body, a faint mist shrouding his figure. Exerting a slight force on his fingertips, Wu Yuan landed silently like a nimble cat. His pores tightened, and he stripped off his soaked shirt to wipe himself with a towel, revealing perfectly chiseled muscles. Wu Yuan's muscular frame was not overly exaggerated, but instead visually harmonious. It gave one a sense of perfection. If something gives off a sense of beauty or harmony, it means it is done correctly. Wu Yuan understood this well. If he overtrained a single muscle or bone, causing it to grow disproportionately large, it might not be beneficial, and instead disrupt the unity of the whole. In just 6 days, my physical constitution has increased by more than 50%, reaching its current limit. Any further enhancement would merely be pulling up the seedlings to help them grow. Wu Yuan could distinctly feel the transformation in his musculoskeletal system. This was unlike training as an adult. Children and teenagers had to cultivate gradually, focusing on nurturing and stimulating their growth. Chasing power blindly would only lead to setbacks. Some martial artists begin straining their bodies at the age of 7 or 8. This affects their subsequent development and they can't grow tall. Wu Yuan walked to one end of the courtyard. Your growth is stunted despite martial training. It just means you are not training correctly. This body is only 14 years old. I've been diligently working on my physical constitution over the past few days with the liquid from the jade vial. However, I'm not only concentrating on building my physical strength, I'm also addressing past deficiencies and nurturing my body. I'm establishing a solid foundation for the coming years of growth. The path of cultivation requires a step-by-step approach. I still have 4 more years of rapid physical development. By adhering to the natural laws of heaven and earth, allowing my body to progress, and pushing it to its limits at each stage, my physical condition will naturally continue to improve. Eventually, I may achieve a state I once deemed impossible. At least, the current me has already surpassed my former self. Wu Yuan clenched his fist and swung a punch. The power in his limbs converged, and the casual punch made the air explode with a bang. Wu Yuan's one-arm strength surpassed 30,000 caddies. In the Human Federation, that would make him the top Grandmaster. If he were to use threefold power surge, that would be 100,000 caddies of force. If I encounter that mysterious expert at Nine Cloud Mountain again. Wu Yuan grinned. I can slay him within 3 moves. One idiom, a farmer was wondering how to make his crops grow quicker. He came up with the idea of pulling them up, and indeed they appeared to have grown taller. Later, his son came to the field and saw that the crops had all died. Chapter 34, Change in Perspective. The clash at Nine Cloud Mountain had a profound impact on Wu Yuan, introducing him to the brutal reality of this world. More importantly, it gave him a fresh understanding of the Middle Land. If a first-rate adept could master power surge, then how about those martial arts experts whose fame shook a continent, or those who stood at the pinnacle of the world? Their battle skills would only be even more formidable. While the legendary heavenly rankers might not possess science or mythical abilities like moving mountains and oceans or plucking stars and moons, they can effortlessly split mountains and part rivers. They are nothing short of deities that walk the land. How powerful are their martial skills? Wu Yuan recalled the novels he had read in the Martial Academy's library. At first, he doubted their authenticity. But now, he had no more doubts. Solely in terms of martial skills, the pinnacle of martial strength in this world likely surpassed Wu Yuan's previous estimates. And this spiritual liquid? Wu Yuan lowered his head to look at the green jade vial beside him. Uncertain of what this mysterious fluid was, he referred to it as spiritual liquid. Its effects were astounding. The life energy liquid, a technological marvel of the Human Federation, paled in comparison. Wu Yuan did not believe this to be a result of technological disparity. It's the material, a byproduct of the fundamental differences of worlds. It's just like how the materials that make up divine weapons surpass any alloy of the Human Federation. Such a gap could not be bridged by technological research. If such a treasure could only be found in the possession of heavenly rankers, that would be understandable. But a second-rate adept possessing such a treasure? This means that similar natural treasures are abundant in the Middle Land. In theory, some large factions could even supply a few martial arts prodigies with such treasures in bulk. Although the utilization efficiency of these young prodigies might be low, they can make up for it with sheer quantity. Previously, Wu Yuan had brimmed with confidence in his abilities. But after getting a taste of this mystical spiritual liquid, he was no longer certain that his foundation was stronger than that of most elite martial artists in this world. The reason was simple. In terms of perception, martial skill, and perhaps bodily control, Wu Yuan might be superior. However, the top prodigies of this world might have been nurtured with countless precious resources since childhood, forging near-perfect physical foundations. At the moment of Wu Yuan's transmigration and awakening, he was already 14. Even though his body's predecessor had practiced harshly, and he had strived to nourish his body during these past months, many aspects of his physique were already set in stone. It was nearly impossible to change them. This could result in a genetic gap from birth. I transmigrated into a 14-year-old body, not a 4-year-old one. It is destined never to reach absolute perfection. Of course, he also felt fortunate. At the very least, this was not the body of a 60-year-old. At the very least, this body's predecessor laid a decent foundation. My aim is to strive for perfection in the next 4 years. I have reached the high phase of cultivation. I can control my body, pushing it to its near utmost limit of growth. But energy is needed for growth. The purer, the better. Whether it was consuming ordinary meat, eating a body-tempering pill, or nourishing the body with this spiritual liquid, all of these could supply him with energy. Wu Yuan could also expel nearly all the impurities. However, he could not expel them completely. In this world, there was no absolute perfection. Thus, the fewer impurities contained in the things Wu Yuan consumed, the better. By doing this, he could minimize the buildup of impurities in his body, which, in turn, would reduce obstacles to his physical development and his future progress in marrow cleansing and blood transfusion cultivation. Regular meat and body tempering pills don't differ much in terms of impurities. Wu Yuan shook his head. They only differed in terms of the amount of energy contained. If he hadn't obtained this mysterious spiritual liquid, Wu Yuan would have continued cultivating with body tempering pills contentedly. But now that he knew it existed, he could not ignore it. This spiritual liquid doesn't contain a single trace of impurities. When Wu Yuan first noticed this, he was deeply shocked. At least, with Wu Yuan's current level of control over his body, he couldn't detect any impurities in the spiritual liquid. Too pure. It ignited an instinctive desire within Wu Yuan. Moving from frugality to luxury was simple, yet transitioning from luxury back to frugality was a difficult path. I had planned to cultivate uneventfully until I reached the age of 18, when my golden years of physical development ended, before venturing forth into the world. Perhaps by then, I could command a strength of 30,000 or even 40,000 caddies. Such strength was truly frightening. Cultivating in such a manner was also extremely safe. But now, Wu Yuan picked up the jade vial, staring at the scant remains of the spiritual liquid inside. If I consistently supplement my cultivation with something similar to this spiritual liquid, by the time I reach 18, my physical constitution could improve by an additional 20% at least. Wu Yuan estimated roughly. 20% didn't seem much. In these few months alone, Wu Yuan's physical strength had multiplied nearly tenfold. However, it must be understood that this was his prime period of progress. When his body's development approached its limit, it would be extremely difficult to increase his strength by even 100 caddies. A difference of 20% likely amounted to a disparity of tens of thousands of caddies in strength. In my past life, my physical constitution was too weak, making it difficult to attempt the 100 acupoints divine technique. But in this life, there is clear hope. A hint of longing was evident in Wu Yuan's eyes. The plan needs to be altered. I need more spiritual liquid to aid my cultivation. Wu Yuan made up his mind. However, spiritual liquid wouldn't just fall from the sky. There are two methods. One is to go and search for it myself, which offers more freedom and no constraints. However, the world is vast and a single person has limited time and energy. Where should I go looking? The second method is to join a powerful force and utilize its resources. A martial arts expert could take on more than 10,000 opponents. Why did they still choose to establish factions? One important reason was to collect resources more efficiently. There was strength in unity. By aligning with a faction and showcasing my talent, I can naturally secure more resources. At the very least, I can swiftly uncover the secrets of this world. Furthermore, I will one day journey across the land to explore all corners of this world. If I join a faction and attain a high position, it will greatly assist my mother and my clan. At different stages of life, one's perspectives changed. When Wu Yuan had just regained consciousness, he had retained the values of a law-bound society from his past life. But now, his thinking gradually aligned with the martial artists of the Middle Land. The Cloud Stride sect is one option. If the Cloud Stride sect doesn't suit my tastes, then I will seek out the sacred martial arts sects of the Dong continent or the Wu continent. The Cloud Stride sect was located closest to him. And as a native citizen of the Cloud Stride sect, of which his father was once a military officer, Wu Yuan could easily earn the sect's trust. As for the Wu continent and the Dong continent, the Wu continent was the birthplace of the foremost martial sect in the world, the Wu sect I. Established by the martial king, its legacy spanned thousands of years. The continent hosted numerous other great martial sects, and welcomed individuals from foreign continents without discrimination. The Dong continent stood second only to the Holy Continent in terms of prosperity, and housed a multitude of factions. The headquarters of the Starcom Consortium, for instance, was located in the Dong continent. However, in comparison to the Cloud Stride sect, earning their trust would prove far more challenging for Wu Yuan. Moreover, the journey to the Dong continent or the Wu continent will be long and arduous. It would take me a considerable length of time just to get there, and I wouldn't be able to look after my clan. Wu Yuan shook his head lightly. Great Jin was also an option. As the most powerful nation in the world, it had substantial resources, and openly welcomed martial artists from all corners of the world. Unfortunately, because of his father's death, Wu Yuan harbored a subconscious feeling of dislike for the Great Jin Empire. Moreover, if I rise to power in the future, the history of my family's last 8 generations will be thoroughly checked. Should it be discovered that my father was killed by Great Jin's army, would they still trust me unconditionally? Would anyone believe that I am loyal to the royal family of Great Jin? It was unrealistic. Loyalty was of utmost importance in any force. It was especially crucial in this world of martial arts where individuals could attain terrifying strength. If a faction raised a heavenly rancor, just for him to turn on them, it would be an absolute nightmare. No rush. The remaining spiritual liquid is enough for another month of cultivation. I should think things over first. Wu Yuan quickly tidied up his belongings in the courtyard, making sure nothing was left behind. After leaving the courtyard, Wu Yuan didn't return home. Instead, he headed to the Martial Academy. Having placed fourth in the previous Martial Academy major tournament, he no longer had to attend any courses. However, as a disciple of the Martial Academy, it was important to make the occasional appearance. Moreover, Wu Yuan had decided to join a major power, and the Cloud Stride sect was his first choice. Making contact with the sect through the Martial Academy was a good strategy. After reaching the Martial Academy, he received a piece of news. The headmaster and instructor Huan have been searching for me these past few days. Wu Yuan was puzzled. One not the same Wu as Wu Yuan? Chapter 35, revealing the first hint of talent. Deep within the Martial Academy, next to the 7-story tower, stood a quiet, secluded courtyard house. This vicinity housed the Martial Academy's instructors, and among all the residences, this courtyard house was the most splendid. It seldom received visitors, but it had been hosting an occupant for the past few days. Inside the courtyard house. Junior sister, don't fall, master. Every martial artist must go through the trials of the world. Being an instructor at the Martial Academy is already one of the easiest and most leisurely roles, laughed a young man clad in a roomy black robe, with a faint scar on his face. I know. Huan Xinyan, her striking black hair framing her face, smiled. To be an instructor, to teach students, is also to teach oneself. In the year that I've served as an instructor at the Martial Academy, the martial principles that eluded me in the past have slowly become clearer to me. That's right. The scarred young man regarded Huan Xinyan appreciatively. The little girl who once followed her senior brother around, making a fuss, has finally started to mature. Senior brother, you're always bringing up my childhood. Huan Xinyan gave a resigned smile. Haha, even this young lady knows how to feel bashful, the scarred young man chuckled heartily. He patted Huan Xinyan's head affectionately. I wonder which talented young man out there will one day be worthy of you. Despite his youthful appearance, the scarred young man was actually over 40 years old. His mastery of martial arts had preserved his looks remarkably well over time, and he was someone who had witnessed Huan Xinyan grow up every step of the way. It's still early, Huan Xinyan said. I remember you were over 30 when you got married, senior brother. I married late because there was no suitable match, the scarred young man chuckled. Actually, that young lad Lu Ren is not bad. Senior brother, please don't make things up. I'm not interested in him, and I'm not thinking of getting married anytime soon, Huan Xinyan shook her head. The knife-scarred young man simply smiled in amusement, clearly not taking her words to heart. Instructor Huan, senior brother Wu Yuan has arrived at the Martial Academy. He has already gone to the Martial Grand Hall, a somewhat uneasy voice called from outside the small courtyard. The two within the courtyard house turned their heads toward the voice. Outside the courtyard stood a tall, slender girl. She looked youthful and wore the Martial Academy disciple uniform. Wu Yuan has arrived. Good, immediately report this to the headmaster, as well as the other instructors of the Martial Academy. I shall be there promptly, Huan Xinyan instructed. Understood. The girl took her leave. Wu Yuan? A disciple of the Martial Academy, I presume, the scarred youth in black robes chuckled. It appears you are worried about him, junior sister. Earlier, he had heard the girl addressing Wu Yuan as senior brother, thus he deduced his position within the Martial Academy. He was my first personal mentee since my arrival at the Li County Martial Academy. Huan Xinyan wore a slightly prideful smile. I'm looking for him because he potentially possesses the strength of a 6th grade martial virtuoso. Hence, I wish for all the instructors of the Martial Academy to witness an assessment of his abilities. A 6th grade martial virtuoso, the scarred youth in the black robe chuckled. The disciples of the Martial Academy are typically no older than 15, if I recall correctly. Correct. Wu Yuan has barely turned 14, said Huan Xinyan earnestly. Moreover, his rapid progress has only occurred over the past few months. Just half a year ago, he was still somewhat lacking even for a 7th grade martial novice. Barely 14? And not even a 7th grade martial novice just 6 months ago. The usually composed youth in black robes appeared slightly taken aback. Sister, are you certain? Did he experience an awakening in his martial path? How can I not be certain of my personal mentee's progress? Huan Xinyan affirmed. The black-robed youth nodded slightly. His physical constitution has improved at an astonishing rate. I do wonder how he fares in actual combat, though. His blade techniques and footwork are both solid, Huan Xinyan said confidently. She could see that her senior brother was intrigued. Haha, junior sister, whether his training is solid or not is best determined through actual combat, the scar-faced youth in black laughed. Isn't your martial academy planning to assess him? Take me with you, I would like to see him for myself. All right. Huan Xinyan's eyes brightened. She knew well that her senior brother held a high position within the sect. Should Wu Yuan catch his eye, Huan Xinyan was even more confident about Wu Yuan's chances of joining the sect. One could even say that it was set in stone. The Martial Grand Hall was the main hall of the Martial Academy, a venue for large-scale public events. Within the hall were several practice rooms and strength assessment chambers. It was a place where disciples of the Martial Academy frequented. Senior brother Wu Yuan. Senior brother. These Martial Academy disciples all recognized Wu Yuan. Standing by the side of the Grand Hall, Wu Yuan responded with a modest nod. Why would Instructor Huan and the headmaster be looking for me? He could think of no particular reason. Ever since the Martial Academy major tournament ended, he had kept a low profile, seldom venturing out even when he cultivated at the Martial Academy. These few months, I have only met Instructor Huan 2 or 3 times. Could it be related to those rumors spread by the clan? Within his clan, it was rumored that he possessed a level of strength nearing that of a martial virtuoso. But that was only a rumor, he had never publicly demonstrated such power. At this moment, a group of 6 or 7 Martial Academy disciples walked through the large door of the Grand Hall. Brother Huan, you will definitely be the first of us to reach the level of a 7th grade martial novice. A 7th grade martial novice. Brother Huan has placed first in the last 4 minor tournaments, and the speed of his progress progress is getting faster each day. There's a good chance he'll enter the Cloud Martial Hall next year. The disciples chattered as they walked, complimenting the handsome, burly young man in the center of the group. Isn't that senior brother Wu Yuan over there? One of them suddenly noticed Wu Yuan standing close by. Wu Yuan. At this year's Martial Academy Major Tournament, it said that his strength was not far off from Wu Yan, who took first place. Several disciples whispered among themselves. In terms of age, Wu Yuan was even younger than some of them. However, within the Martial Academy, Wu Yuan had always been a famous figure. Wu Yuan, the teenager named Guanyang, furrowed his brows. He had heard of Wu Yuan. As the most dazzling disciple from the Dongyi Guan clan in recent years, he yearned to enter the Cloud Martial Hall more than anything else. And to enter the Cloud Martial Hall, he had to seize first place in the Martial Academy Major Tournament. Guanyang had assessed his competitors, and his greatest competitor was none other than Wu Yuan. But in the past few months, he had not seen Wu Yuan around. I heard that Wu Yuan is eligible to participate in the next Martial Academy Major Tournament. That's why he stayed in the academy for one more year. He's aiming for the Cloud Martial Hall too, a disciple whispered. He is Brother Guan's biggest threat. The other disciples all nodded in agreement. Even without increasing their strength, the top 4 of the previous tournament all had the potential to seize first place in the next major tournament. Moreover, they were at the golden age of physical development. Even without intense training, their strength would steadily increase. He's very powerful. I don't think Brother Guan can match him yet, said a rather calm, tall, and skinny disciple in the group. Guanyang huffed coldly, shooting a stern glance at the skinny disciple. The disciple's expression faltered, immediately realizing he had misspoken. Guanyang abruptly changed his direction, leading his followers straight towards Wu Yuan. Senior Brother Wu, Guanyang greeted with a beaming smile, showing no trace of his previous coldness. I have always admired Senior Brother Wu, but never got the chance to speak with you. Senior Brother Wu. Hello, Senior Brother. Several disciples greeted him with a look of awe. Even though they formed a clique with Guanyang, they were still quite reserved in front of the famous Senior Brother Wu. Hello, Wu Yuan casually replied, not minding them. Senior Brother Wu, my name is Guanyang. I was wondering if my name rings a bell with you. Guanyang maintained a graceful smile. Guanyang. Wu Yuan pondered, shaking his head, no. Guanyang's face stiffened. At that moment, he was fully convinced that Wu Yuan was deliberately mocking him. After all, he had seized first place in the minor tournament 4 times consecutively. Even if Wu Yuan didn't recognize him, how could he not know his name? Little did he know that ever since the last Martial Academy Major Tournament, Wu Yuan no longer paid any attention to the events within the academy. Martial Academy Major Tournament? That was just a bunch of children playing house. In Wu Yuan's original plan, he had no intention to participate. Senior Brother Wu, your reputation precedes you. Guanyang fixed his gaze on Wu Yuan. Word has it that you decided not to enroll in South Dream Martial Academy, all to secure the top spot in next year's major tournament. Interestingly, I also have my sights set on joining the Cloud Martial Hall. Why don't we have a contest now? Senior Brother, what do you think? A contest? Wu Yuan raised an eyebrow. He swept his gaze around, only then noticing the Martial Academy disciples behind Guanyang. He quickly grasped the situation. There's no need for a contest. Wu Yuan said indifferently. Is Senior Brother Wu scared, or do you think I'm not worthy? Guanyang asked in a low voice. Senior Brother Wu, you are strong. At 14, you became a 7th grade martial novice. I admire that. Perhaps physically, I'm not as strong as you. However, I received personal guidance and training from my clan's ancestor. I believe my saber skills are rather unique. I heard Senior Brother is also proficient in the saber. I would like to request your guidance. Guanyang stared at Wu Yuan. Guanyang was not impulsive by nature. But if he wanted to enter the Cloud Martial Hall, he had to understand the gap in strength between Wu Yuan and himself. Ancestor. Wu Yuan's brow furrowed slightly before he suddenly asked, you are from the Dongyi Guan clan? Indeed. Guanyang replied with a hint of pride. Wu Yuan understood. The ancestor of Dongyi Municipality's Guan clan, Guan Zishan, was the top expert of Li City, a former first-rate adept. The Guan clan was one of the most prominent families in Li City. There's Wu Yuan. He's finally back. Noise echoed from the Grand Hall's entrance as a group entered, drawing the attention of numerous disciples. Guan Yang and Wu Yuan both turned to look. Headmaster Zhang De, Huan Xinyan, and over 10 other martial academy instructors clad in purple robes walked in together. Headmaster. Instructor Liu. Guan Yang asked, slightly surprised. So many instructors. Why have they suddenly come to the martial Grand Hall? The 20-odd disciples in the hall were all puzzled. Wu Yuan also looked over, but his gaze passed over the rest of the instructors and landed on a young man in black robes with a scarred face at the very back of the group. That stride. Those eyes. And that aura, perfectly concealed but still caught by Wu Yuan's sharp perception. He instantly knew that this was an expert, at least a first-rate adept. Haha, Guan Yang, I didn't expect you all to be here. One of the martial academy instructors stepped forward, laughing. We were going to call you over to observe and learn from your senior brother, Wu Yuan. Since you are all here already, you've saved us the trouble. Instructor Liu, what do you mean by observe and learn? Guan Yang couldn't help but ask. What? The martial academy instructor frowned. Don't you know? Your senior brother Wu Yuan has reached the level of martial virtuoso. Today, the martial academy is publicly assessing him. Senior brother Wu? Martial virtuoso? Guan Yang stared at Wu Yuan as though looking at a monster. Chapter 36, Cloud Air. The disciples inside the Grand Hall were struck dumb upon hearing the instructor's words. What? A martial virtuoso? Is it true? These disciples of the martial academy looked at Wu Yuan in shock. Wu Yuan is only 14, isn't he? He's yet to reach 15. As disciples of the martial academy, most of them were 8th grade martial novices. Naturally, they understood what reaching the martial virtuoso level represented. Amongst adults, martial virtuosos were rare enough to be called 1 in 100, their capabilities warranting positions as corporals and sergeants in the city guard. For these teenage martial academy disciples, reaching the 7th grade martial novice level was already a remarkable achievement. Though it might appear to be just a 1-grade disparity between 7th and 6th grade, the baseline requirement for one's physical constitution differed by a whole order of magnitude. Physical strength was doubled, and ability was improved tenfold. A 14-year-old martial virtuoso. Guan Yang was momentarily dazed, blurting out subconsciously, impossible. It's only been a few months, how could he have improved so rapidly? Is this for real? He couldn't help but believe it was some sort of mistake. One had to understand that Guan Yang was a 7th grade martial novice, but the earliest age target ancestor Guan set for him to become a martial virtuoso was before 16. Guan Yang, what are you babbling about? Instructor Liu frowned. The headmaster is here in person. Do you still doubt it? Even if senior brother Wu isn't a martial virtuoso yet, he's most certainly close. I dare not. Guan Yang lowered his head. Doubt the headmaster? Forget him, a 7th grade martial novice youngster. Even if ancestor Guan Zishan were present, he would think twice before contradicting the martial academy headmaster. Putting aside the matter of authority, the headmaster of the martial academy was at least a 2nd-rate adept. At this moment, Headmaster Zhang De, Huan Xinyan, and other instructors of the martial academy entered the Grand Hall, wearing smiles as they looked at Wu Yuan. Headmaster, Instructor Huan, Wu Yuan bowed respectfully. Despite the power he wielded, he chose to be a disciple of the martial academy, and thus must act the part. Guan Yang and other disciples of the martial academy also bowed one by one, each of them respectful. However, what surprised the disciples of the martial academy was that Headmaster Zhang De and the instructors actively parted to form 2 columns, making way for a young man in black robes and a scar on his face to walk to the forefront. All the instructors, including the headmaster, appeared to treat him with utmost respect. This caused the many disciples to feel inwardly shocked. From what they could remember, even when the county mayor or the general of defense came, the headmaster did not show such deference. Who was the young man in black robes? Only Wu Yuan wasn't surprised, but he still proceeded to show a shocked expression on his face. Since this was a play, he had to put on a performance. Wu Yuan, allow me to introduce you. This is Senior Gao Yu, a protectorate from the sect headquarters. Headmaster Zhang De made the introduction. The title of Protectorate is a designation within our sect. Should Senior Gao Yu be dispatched by the sect, he could serve as the headmaster of the South Dream Martial Academy or even assume the role of a provincial general, Headmaster Zhangde explained with a smile. In simpler terms, Senior Gao Yu is a third-grade martial artist. And among third-grade martial artists, Senior Gao Yu is extremely strong, Zhangde confirmed without hesitation. The Grand Hall fell into awed silence. All the disciples of the Martial Academy looked at the young man in the black robe wide-eyed, some of them scarcely believing it. A third-grade martial artist was a first-rate adept. For the vast majority of the disciples present, almost none of them had seen a first-rate adept in their lives. "Greetings, Senior Gao Yu," Wu Yuan said, perfectly timing a look of admiration on his face. All the disciples paid their respects as well, some visibly excited. For most of them, this was their first close encounter with such a significant figure. Guanyang maintained a formal demeanor as well. He was well aware that even his clan's ancestor had only been a custodian of the sect, never attaining the rank of protectorate. In the Cloud Stride sect, all protectorates were first-rate adepts, but not all first-rate adepts were protectorates. Guanyang couldn't help but glance at Wu Yuan with envy. It was clear to everyone that this influential figure was here because of him. "Wu Yuan, there's no need to be nervous." The black-robed young man with the scar laughed. "I am not a protectorate of the instruction hall, I simply happen to be passing through Li City. Coincidentally, you came to the Martial Academy today and the headmaster wanted to verify your strength, so I came to take a look." Wu Yuan nodded obediently. "Wu Yuan," Huan Xinyan said solemnly, "although Senior Gao Yu doesn't have the authority to admit you directly to the sect, writing you a recommendation is well within his capacity. If that happens, your chances of becoming a cloud heir will greatly increase. You must seize this opportunity and perform well," Huan Xinyan advised, displaying a trace of concern. "I will," Wu Yuan nodded, though somewhat puzzled. "Cloud heir? What's that?" Upon his arrival at the Martial Academy, he had only been notified to come to the Martial Grand Hall. Nothing more was mentioned. During the past few days when he had been absent from the Martial Academy, Gao Yu had arrived in Li City without warning, and Huan Xinyan made the sudden decision to evaluate his abilities. There had been no opportunity for prior discussion. However, Wu Yuan had a hunch that Gao Yu seemed to have an extraordinary relationship with Huan Xinyan. As Huan Xinyan's personal mentee, if he genuinely desired to join the Cloud Stride sect, today appeared to be an excellent opportunity to do so. The mention of cloud heirs elicited expressions of joy, astonishment, and envy from the Martial Academy instructors nearby. "Shall we proceed?" Headmaster Zhangde chuckled. "Wu Yuan, all you need to do today is to display your full strength. Don't miss this rare opportunity. I would be delighted if one of our Academy's disciples could earn the title of Cloud Heir." His face was full of joy, seemingly holding Wu Yuan in high regard. Wu Yuan couldn't help but sneer inwardly. How could he forget how this smiling tiger had forced him to bow out of the Martial Academy major tournament at the Sioux Manor? "I will do my best, Headmaster," Wu Yuan said solemnly. Before long, the group of Martial Academy instructors, led by Gao Yu, Zhangde, and Wu Yuan, entered a spacious strength assessment chamber situated on one side of the Great Martial Hall. The room was vast, with enough space for hundreds of individuals. In addition to the instructors, many disciples, including Guanyang, joined the gathering to witness the spectacle. Naturally, the Martial Academy instructors made no attempt to stop them. In no time, the number of attendees inside the strength assessment chamber reached around 50. "Go ahead," Huan Xinyan said. "Start with the 5,000 Kati test stone, then gradually proceed to heavier ones. Don't rush." Wu Yuan nodded. He moved to the center of the strength assessment chamber, where more than 10 stone pedestals of varying weights were neatly arranged in ascending order, starting from 1,000 Katis, 2,000 Katis, and so on. The largest stone pedestal weighed a staggering 20,000 Katis. The assessment consisted of 2 tests. The first evaluated strength, while the second focused on combat. Wu Yuan did not obey Huan Xinyan's instructions. Instead, he strode directly to the test stone weighing 8,000 Katis. The test stone was fashioned from a unique material and was exceptionally dense. Despite weighing 8,000 Katis, it was only the size of a table, but everyone present was keenly aware of the stone's mass. Up. Wu Yuan clutched the handle on the side of the test stone with a single hand. With a swift motion, his arm suddenly exerted a shocking force, hoisting the stone upwards. Without any pause, he raised it directly above his head. His arm did not tremble, and his body did not waver at all. The onlookers stared in disbelief. Even Gao Yu, who typically appeared indifferent, was slightly taken aback, revealing a surprised expression. Although a martial virtuoso could lift 10,000 caddies of weight with a single arm, it did not mean they could effortlessly lift a test stone weighing 8,000 caddies. And doing it in the same manner as Wu Yuan, without any pause, was a considerably more arduous feat. It was clear that Wu Yuan's strength either vastly exceeded 8,000 caddies or he employed a unique force exertion technique. Wu Yuan gently set it down, seemingly without much effort. Then, he proceeded to the next test stone, which was marginally larger. This one weighed 10,000 caddies. Without any hesitation, Wu Yuan raised it forcefully, with his arm, torso, and thigh remaining steadfast. The sole difference was a brief pause when the test stone reached his chest, clearly reflecting the stone's increased weight. At this juncture, no one harbored any doubts about Wu Yuan's martial virtuoso level strength. He was a true 14-year-old martial virtuoso. Moreover, the instructors of the Martial Academy who observed Wu Yuan's posture could clearly discern that Wu Yuan had yet to reach his limit. Thud. The test stone fell. Wu Yuan's face turned slightly red, but he did not approach Huan Xinyan, and instead advanced toward the next test stone, intending to continue with the assessment. 10,000 caddies. Could it be that this is not Wu Yuan's limit? Guan Yang stared in disbelief. The eyes of the Martial Academy disciples widened. Can he lift even more? Huan Xinyan's eyes shone brightly. Wu Yuan had already exceeded her expectations by lifting the 10,000 caddy test stone. Wu Yuan walked past the 12,000 caddy stone without stopping. Is he not continuing the test? What is Wu Yuan up to? Huan Xinyan's expression shifted, betraying a trace of doubt. Could it be that he can lift an even heavier stone? She vividly remembered that a little over 3 months ago, Wu Yuan had been nothing more than a 7th grade martial novice. To amass such incredible strength in such a short span was truly terrifying. Yet, could he be even stronger? Wu Yuan, this youngster. Does he truly possess such strength, or is he merely bluffing? Headmaster Zhang De stared intently at Wu Yuan. Outwardly, he seemed enthusiastic and optimistic about Wu Yuan's prospects. However, inwardly, he harbored a measure of unease. At this moment, he regretted having previously obstructed Wu Yuan. Even when he reached the 15,000 caddy test stone, Wu Yuan still did not stop. He continued to the next one. The atmosphere in the entire strength assessment chamber shifted dramatically. Even Gao Yu, a usually composed man, exhibited a hint of curiosity. He didn't stop at the 15,000 caddy stone. At last, Wu Yuan came to a stop by the second largest test stone, which was nearly twice the size of the 10,000 caddy stone he had just tackled. This test stone stood at nearly half a man's height. It was an 18,000 caddy test stone. A layer of dust covered the testing stone, as if it had not been disturbed or wiped for a long time. At this very moment, nearly everyone held their breath while watching Wu Yuan. After all, in the 200 years since the establishment of the Li County Martial Academy, no disciple had ever lifted the 18,000 caddy test stone. Since I've made up my mind to join the Cloud Stride sect and rise to prominence swiftly without arousing suspicion, I must take the genius route. Originally, I was planning to stop at the 10,000 caddy test stone. But this first-rate adept Gao Yu just so happened to be present. I will reveal a little more then. I believe he'll be able to see the clues. Chapter 37, Gao Yu's attention. It was just like putting on a performance. How spectacular one found a performance wasn't solely determined by the performer's quality but also the caliber of the audience. Had Gao Yu not been present, Wu Yuan would have only needed to lift the 8,000 caddy stone to wow the crowd. However, with an expert like Gao Yu watching, Wu Yuan felt the need to make his performance a little more special. Within the strength assessment chamber, more than 10 Martial Academy instructors and dozens of disciples focused their attention on the muscular yet slightly immature-looking teenager in the center. A 14-year-old lifting an 18,000 caddy test stone. Could it be done? Can he lift it? Guan Yang and the other Martial Academy disciples collectively held their breaths, their instincts telling them it was impossible. As fellow Martial Academy disciples, could the gap between them really be this huge? Wu Yuan, this. Huan Xinyan stared wide-eyed. After cultivating for many years, along with the help of her elders and a wealth of resources, Her pure physical strength was just over 20,000 caddies. But in her heart, she still held a glimmer of hope. What if he succeeded? Wu Yuan placed his right hand on the handle of the test stone, his fingers gripping it tightly. His expression was serious, and he seemed somewhat nervous. His stance was firm, legs apart, and feet rooted. He closed his eyes for a few seconds and took a deep breath, as though trying to compose himself. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Exhaling, Wu Yuan opened his eyes. His legs trembled, his muscles strained, and strength converged through his limbs and bones. His arm muscles bulged like coiling steel wires as a terrifying force erupted forth, and he exerted all his strength upward. The massive test stone quivered ever so slightly, but it remained still. Freeotnovel.cm. He failed. He didn't manage to lift it. The thought rose simultaneously in the minds of all the spectators. They subconsciously assumed Wu Yuan had failed. But in the next moment, get up. The veins on Wu Yuan's face bulged with the strain. As he shifted his right foot